Now it's called Vaisnava Vigyapti. It's page 68 in my songbook, but maybe maybe the same in yours. Vaisnava Vigyapti. Ei-bāro. 35. Vaisnava Vigyapti. Baro Karuna Koro. Vaisnava Goswami. Let us know when you find it, because it's not a very common song, in terms of ISKCON anyway.
I think it's right after Vaisnava.
It's the first song of Narottama Dasa Thakura in this songbook. First song of Narottama. Are you sure you've got it? Let me see. Okay. They have a completely different order in this book. Isn't that strange? They're not in order they're not in order of the authors. This must be a strange arrangement. Oh, I see what they've done here. I think I do anyway. Yeah, I see what they've done. They put it. Look at it. You got Vaisnava Goswami Astakam in the middle of the book. What they, anyway, I don't want to comment. They've gone backwards and forwards a little bit there. They're trying to put it in some order of ascent, from Guru to Acharyas to Gauranga up to Radha and Krishna. I think that it looked like it. I looked at 4 or 5 songs there. It looks like that's what they're trying to do. It makes it easy, but maybe easier, I don't know, to find the song. So, Vaisnava Vigyapti, prayer to the Vaisnava. Our spiritual lives really are completely dependent on the mercy of devotees. Ultimately the mercy of Krishna. But without the mercy of the Vaishnava, one cannot get the mercy of Krishna. So this song is very sweet. O Vaisnava Goswami, please be merciful to me now. There is no one except you who can purify the fallen souls. Where does anyone find such a merciful personality by whose mere audience all sins go far away? We could, let's say, understand that in the association of such great souls, that the desire for materialistic endeavor, sense gratification, can be dissipated if we take advantage of their association. It's the most purifying, as we hear many times from Shastras, that a moment's association with such great souls is even more purifying than taking bath, as the next verse says actually, after bathing in the waters of the sacred Ganges many times, one becomes purified. But just by the sight of you, the fallen souls are purified. This is your great power. Any devotee is, of course, purifying, but specifically this refers to the great souls of Vaisnava Goswami, those who are truly situated in pure devotion. Just by seeing them, we can become purified. We lose this attraction for mundane sense gratification. We put in their association, we feel Krishna in the center of their lives. This is your great power. That great power is because they're carrying Krishna in their heart. They don't carry any other loads. Most of us are carrying loads of stuff, be they gross desires or subtle desires, but all kinds of things. Pure devotees do not carry any of that stuff. So naturally in their association, Krishna's presence is very manifested. The holy name delivers one who has committed an offense to Lord Hari. But if one commits an offense to you, There is no means of deliverance. But the only means, as we know from several prominent examples, is that one has to take shelter of that devotee. Even if you take shelter of that devotee, depending on the extent of one's offense, that may not be enough. Because ultimately the release is given by Krishna. He never releases anyone who offends his pure devotee. The only release is to rectify that by taking shelter in a sincere repentant mood of that Vaishnava. However, just like we see in the case of, what was his name now? I get them mixed up. There's Gopal Chakravarti, and the other one was called? These two offenders. One offended Srivas Thakur, one offended Haridas Thakur. What was his name? Gopal Chapala. So Gopal Chakravarti offended Haridas, wasn't it? So Gopal Chakravarti, who offended Haridas Thakur, even though he took shelter of Haridas, it wasn't enough. Lord Chaitanya would not forgive him because he blasphemed Haridas Thakur in public. He had to apologize to everyone, or place himself humbly and submissively in front of all those. And it states that when one blasphemes someone, of course now we have social media where you can blaspheme somebody in front of the entire universe practically. The only way you can rectify that is, if at all, is to, on public media, to come humbly and submissively and repentantly apologize that you've made a serious error, and you beg people for the necessary atonement or whatever it may be for such a statement, a critical statement or blasphemous statement to a Vaishnava. It has to be done. The form in which you blaspheme somebody is that form you have to rectify yourself, not in your own created form, or even just by chanting Hare Krishna or going to that Vaishnava. One has to go to whatever extent one went to criticize or blaspheme the Vaishnavas. One has to go to that form in order to try to get the mercy of Krishna. Otherwise he won't forgive. So Krishna doesn't forgive someone who offends his Vaishnava, his devotee. Your heart is always the resting place of Lord Govinda. And Lord Govinda says, the Vaishnavas are in my heart. We have the vivid example of Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni, of course. I desire the dust of your holy feet in every birth I may take. Please consider Narottama yours, and be kind upon him. Nice song. ei-bāro Karuna Koro Vaisnava Goswami ei-bāro Karuna Koro Vaisnava Gosāñi patita-pāvana tomā bine keho patita-pāvana tomā bine keho jāhāra nikat gele pāpa dūre nikat gele pāpa dūre emona doyāla prabhu kebā kothā emona doyāla prabhu kebā kothā gańgāra gele patita-pāvana gańgāra hari-sthāne patita-pāvana darshane pavitra koro-ei tomā darshane pavitra koro-ei tomā hari-sthāne aparadhe tade hari-nām hari-sthāne aparadhe tade hari-nām tomā aparadhe nahi paritran tomā aparadhe nahi paritran tomāra hridoye sada govinda-viśrām tomāra hridoye sada govinda-viśrām govinda kohena-mora Vaisnava param govinda kohena-mora Vaisnava prati-janme koriyāsa charanera dūre Narottama koro doyāla apanara Narottama koro doyāla apanara Baro Karuna Koro Vaisnava Goswami Baro Karuna Koro Vaisnava Goswami patita-pāvana tomā bine keho patita-pāvana tomā oh hey Vaisnava Goswami, Vaisnava Goswami, Vaisnava Goswami, hey Vaisnava Goswami, Vaisnava Goswami, hey Vaisnava Goswami, Vaisnava Goswami, hey Vaisnava. Jaya Vaisnava Goswami, hey Vaisnava Goswami, Vaisnava Goswami, hey Vaisnava Goswami. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Balaba Giribadhare Gopijana Balaba Giribadhare Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana Yasodanandana Prati-janme Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shintai Sachi Sutta ki jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Parasishwara ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Go Premanandi. All glorious to the assembled devotees. All glorious to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glorious to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Well, I think we're reading on text number 18 today. Is that correct, Krishna people?
Yeah. 8:3:18.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 3, Text 18, Gajendra's Prayers of Surrender. And it's, again, I don't think you have it, you may have it on your mobiles. There you go. There's only a few of us today, so you can easily share it. Please repeat. Atma Atma Japta Griha Vita Janeshu Saktair Dushprapanaya Guna Sangha Vivajitaya Mukta Atmavi Svahridaye Paribhavitaya Jnana Atmane Bhagavate Namaha Ishvaraya Atmatma Japta Grihavita Janeshu Saktair Dushpapranaya Gunasanga Vivajitaya Muktatma Bisa Vidaye Paribhavitaya Jnanatmane Bhagavate Nama Ishvaraya Atmatma Japta Grihavita Janeshu Saktair Dushprapanaya Gunasanga Vivajitaya Muktatma Bisa Vidaye Paribhavitaya Jnanatmane bhagavate nama ishvaraya. Atmatma japta grihavita janeshu saktair. Dushprapanaya gunasanga vivajitaya. Muktatma visa vidaye paribhavitaya. Jnanatmane bhagavate nama ishvaraya.
Atma japta grihavita janeshu saktair. Dushprapanaya gunasanga vivajitaya.
Muktatma visa vidaye paribhavitaya. Jnanatmane bhagavate nama ishvaraya.
Atmatma japta grihavita janeshu saktair.
Atmatma japta grihavita janeshu saktair.
Dushprapanaya gunasanga vivajitaya.
Dushprapanaya gunasanga vivajitaya.
Muktatma visa paribhavitaya.
Muktatma visa vidaye paribhavitaya.
Jnanatmane bhagavate nama ishvaraya.
Jnanatmane bhagavate nama ishvaraya. Atma, the mind and body. Atmaja, sons and daughters. Apta, friends and relatives. Griha, home, community, society, and nation. Vita, wealth. Janeshu, to various servants and assistants. Saktaihi, by those who are too attached. Dushprapanaya, unto you, who are very difficult to achieve. Gunasanga, by the three modes of material nature. Vivajitaya, who are not contaminated. Mukta atmabhihi, by persons who are already liberated. Sva hridaye, within the core of the heart. Paribhavitaya, unto you, who are always meditated upon. Jnana atmane, the reservoir of all enlightenment. Bhagavate, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Namaha, I offer my respectful obeisances. Ishvaraya, unto the Supreme Controller. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Gajendra continues his prayers. My Lord, those who are completely freed from material contamination always meditate upon you within the cores of their hearts. You are extremely difficult to attain for those like me who are attached to mental concoction, home, relatives, friends, money, servants, and assistants. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, uncontaminated by the modes of nature. You are the reservoir of all enlightenment, the Supreme Controller. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes into the material world, he is unaffected by the modes of material nature. This is confirmed in Ishopanishad, apapa vidham. You can look that verse up, Krishna Kripa Prabhu, Ishopanishad.
Which one?
Well, it has the word apapa-vidham, so if you have the Veda based, you can search. I don't know which number it is, I can't remember. If anyone knows, you can tell. He is not contaminated. This same fact is described here. Guna Sangha Vivajitaya. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears as an incarnation within this material world, he is unaffected by the modes of material nature. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:11, quite a famous verse in the Gita, which goes like, how does it go? Chapter 9. What is chapter 9 called? Oh, you know, you're supposed to be looking up these Upanishads. You're not supposed to be with us here. That's cheating. Avajananti mang mudha manu shim tanum ashritam. Foolish men with insufficient knowledge deride the personality of Godhead because he appears just like a human being. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be understood only by the muktatma, the liberated soul. Muktatma bi savidaye paribhavitaya. Only the liberated person can constantly think of Krishna. Such a person is the greatest of all yogis. Yoginam api sarvesham maggatenantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yo mam sa me yuktatamo mataha. Another famous verse from Gita 6:47. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. End of purport. So you can read the verse from Ishopanishad, please.
Okay, let's see.
You got it?
Yeah, it's number 8.
Number 8. Sanskrit.
Well, that's you know how they are. Sapar yadgyach shukam akayam avranam ashnabiram shudam apapa-vidam.
Okay, that's enough. We got the word of pāpa.
Yeah.
Okay. And read the translation.
Such a person must factually know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher who's been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. And the word-for-word translation for apapa-vidam is prophylactic, actually.
Yeah. Very unusually used English word. Huh?
Yeah.
What does prophylactic mean? Uncontaminated? Cannot be contaminated?
Let's see what... Yeah.
So this verse, particularly you could say, is Prabhupada's purport, we can see, is emphasizing the transcendental nature of Krishna, even if he appears in this world.
Prophylactic means to prevent disease.
Pardon?
Prevents disease.
Prevent disease. Huh?
Yes, he prevents the disease of material existence.
Yes, he does. As we heard just now in the song that you sang, how the association of those that are pure can protect us from the impurities of the environment or our own consciousness. The Supreme Lord himself, of course, prophylactic, prevents. This is a very medical term, but in terms of practicality, Antiseptic, I think Prabhu word, there's that word, antiseptic.
That was also used as a translation of the previous word, which was shudam.
Antiseptic and prophylactic. So both antiseptic and able to purify others by their presence. He's pavitram. He's the supreme pavitram. Pāpa-vidam, that which counteracts pāpa. Counters sin. Pāpa. So, aside from this, establishing Krishna's position, and we're in the Bhagavad Gita. Who remembers in the Bhagavad Gita, maybe you can look it up if you have a Bhagavad Gita here, where Krishna further expands on this point of his transcendental nature. Can someone bring the Bhagavad Gita? You have the English one here or not? I don't know.
Could you elaborate more on how he's expanding on this?
How he's transcendental to the material energy. That's good. I'll read one verse and then you can think of others if you wish. It's good to remember simple things like this. Well, we're fairly close to it here. Where's it? Here it is in the Bhagavad Gita, I think.
On 8-9, he mentions that there's a
8-9.
Yeah, the last thing
Okay,
talks
let's
about
look.
like, beyond the darkness of
No, Tamasopast.
Pardon?
8-9. Tamasapara, he's transcendental to the darkness of material ignorance.
Yes, he's who is the oldest, he knows everything, who is smaller than the smallest, the maintainer of everything, beyond all material conception, inconceivable, always a person, luminous like the sun, and he is transcendental, beyond this material nature. That's a nice verse. That's how one should meditate on the Lord, because this is, you can say, same thing like with Gajendra's prayers, they're not so much on the platform of a personal, a realized relationship. There's a beginning stage here, how we attain the Supreme. We have to approach Him in this way initially. Another verse you could say in the 4th chapter. Think of any others, please do. Pardon? Yeah. Ajopi son of yayatma bhutana mishropi san prakitim svamadishtaya sambhavam yatmayaya. Although I am unborn, and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. Other verses? Pardon? Excuse me? Where's that verse, do you know?
So, chapter 3.
3?
Oh yeah, 322.
322? Glad we got some devotees who are still connected to the Bhagavad Gita here. 322.
He says, I come in that world, but I'm not interested in anything.
Yeah, indirectly you could say there's a verse.
No, I'm affected.
There is no work prescribed for me with all the 3 planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I any need to obtain anything.
Then 1517 indicates he's beyond.
15, 17.
Yeah, he's beyond all perfect and imperfect beings.
Besides these 2, there's the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord Himself, who has entered the material 3 worlds and is maintaining them. Okay, indirect.
9-5 as well.
Pardon? 9-5?
9-5, yeah. Everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence, although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, still myself is the very source of creation.
And in the next verse after you quoted in the 15th chapter, because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in this world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharat.
Sounds like passage of the Quran. He has the kind of description of God, you know.
The very kind of indirect, very secondary descriptions, related to our experience in our conditioned world, basically. Which is necessary to go through stages of, at least to understand these tattvas, these truths of the Lord, is essential. And otherwise one can get a little bit, tendency to be a little bit over sentimental or over, whatever, emotional about these things. Got to be tempered a little bit with knowledge. So knowledge of the various energies of the Lord described here in relationship to the material world. I'm sure there are many other verses in the Gita which touch on this particular point. Probably and that's one thing. From our perspective, the word in this verse, where is it now? Dushprapanaya. Do you remember what that means? Dushprapanaya. Prapana. Prapana means? Prapana?
It's difficult to surrender.
Yeah, difficult to surrender or to achieve. Prapana. And when you have the do in front, it becomes very difficult. So there are many verses like that too, or you can give various instances how the absolute truth, even in this sense, what to speak of the more personal aspect of the Lord, very hard for people to understand. Even the, I don't know the word you use, the secondary aspects of the Lord's, understanding of the Lord in terms of his relationship with the material world is hard for people to understand or accept. Well, to speak of the personal one, we won't go into the personal aspect here. This verse doesn't delve into it very much, if at all. Just that he appears in this world as a human being is pretty much inconceivable to most people. That he has a form, even though I believe in the Bible it says, what does it say about form?
You're created in the image of God.
Yeah, man is created in the image of God, so one would assume, of course, maybe not the beautiful form that I have, and maybe God isn't as beautiful as me, but something like that. So there's some indication that the form of the Lord, maybe it is two-armed, two-handed, and so on and so forth, and maybe he does have this human-like form, as we just heard from Avajananti Mamana Manushatanamasritam, that fools deride him when he appears in this form, and they do. Even when Krishna personally appeared in this world, most people derided him. Isn't that what it states in the Bhagavatam?
Gita as well.
Pardon?
In the Bhagavad
Well, that verse we just quoted in the Gita. But in Srimad Bhagavatam also, that's there. Only a handful of people. Of course, it was more than a handful. It was a big hand, but it was a majority of people derided him practically. They didn't understand him. Even those who accepted him in various ways didn't fully understand him in general. Very rare to fully understand the personality of Godhead. How can he be the personality of Godhead? Maybe he's a demigod. Maybe he's the transformation of the mode of goodness, some concocted idea or whatever. But to understand him fully is very, very rare. Extremely rare. Where's some verses that describe how rare and why it's so rare to understand the Lord? Does anyone know?
Is that one that talks about how Vedeshu Durlava Madurlava Matmava?
The Brahma Samhita? Yeah, Vedeshu. No, that's how does it go? I sing it every morning, but when I think of it separately. Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam adyam purana purusham navayovanam cha Vedeshu durlabam adurlabam atmabhakto govinda-viśrām tamaham bhajami. Translation? Look it up so we can have exact translation. Look it up. Very easy to find. What other verses?
From Bhagavatam or?
Anywhere.
Or Samatma Sudurlabha Ganovanam Prapadyante Vasudevam Sarvaniti.
Again, please. First line.
What is the first line?
That's my memory of first, especially when you get up 5 minutes before class. Yeah, look it up and see. Very rare, very hard to understand.
Or Manushyanam
Manushyanam Sahasrishu Kaschid Yatitishu Yatitam. And what's the translation?
Amongst millions of men or thousands of men, maybe one will be interested in spiritual knowledge and amongst...
Yeah. Prabhupada used the word millionaire-shu in one lecture. He actually changed the word Sahasrishu, he said millionaire-shu. There's some really good verses, and as I say, it takes a little trigger to remind me. You remember any? You got some there, Rishabh?
I think it says in Bhagavatam 7.5.32, if anyone understands Urukraman Grihi or the Supreme Lord, for him to understand the existence of the soul is not very difficult. Just like one who has seen the sun glow, for him to understand what is sunshine is not very difficult. But one who is perpetually in the darkness, neither has seen the sunshine nor has seen the sun glow, for him what is light, what is sun, it is very difficult to understand.
That's an interesting verse, isn't it? What was that number?
That was Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.32.
7.5?
Yeah.
7.5. Who spoke that?
That's the chapter that has the 9 items of devotional service.
Yeah, I can't remember that verse. That's amazing. 7.5. Find out who spoke that. Have a quick look. See.
Bahunam Janmanamante.
Bahunam Jamanamante Gyanavamam Papadite Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samhatma Sadulaba. That's the verse was.
Yes.
What does that mean?
After many, many births, one will finally surrender unto me, after knowing me, and then knowing me, the causes of all causes, such great soul is very rare.
Very, very rare. And there's some other verses. Naham, what's that? Naham Prakasha. Huh?
Naham Prakasha Sarvasya.
Yeah, verse number?
24.
Good to revise it. Bhagavad Gita number what?
25. 925.
925.
725.
725. Read it.
I'm never manifest to the foolish and intelligent, for they are covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am born infallible. Na prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavrita budoyamna vijayanti lokanam.
There's some similar verses in that 7th chapter and in the 9th chapter also.
It's just before it's avyaktam yaktimapanam manyante mama buddhaya. Intelligent men who don't know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, was impersonal before. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme.
Different types of persons who are covered. Covered. Consciousness is covered. It's like when we look at anything with covered consciousness, we see it through our consciousness. We don't see it necessarily as it is. We judge it through our particular conditioning. I mean, everyone has, we don't really know. I often wonder what it would be like if you were in someone else's body and you're seeing the same things through their body with your own conditioning, so to speak. It might look very different. It's like people wearing different sets of glasses. We may all come to a conclusion, this is this and that, but if you put the other person's glasses on, you'll see it very differently. Very differently. We're all conditioned in different ways. There may be a degree of unification in how we judge things or perceive things, and we see there's a large degree of disunification also in how we judge things and see things. But there may be we may accept certain unifying factors or common denominators, but at the same time we all see it somewhat differently. This is how conditioned life is. Of course, in the spiritual world also different devotees see Krishna differently. In this world, those who are approaching Krishna see him differently, as we have heard indications there. The impersonal aspect, and then we hear, the reverential aspect, which we're hearing here. You are the Almighty, you are infallible, you are the Creator, you're the source of everything. All true, you could say, but it's a It's like, you describe a person as tall, thin, black, white, strong, weak, this, that, the other. It may all be related to, you could say, their manifest form, but it may not describe too much about their inner nature or their inner self as such. Related, but not very deep. So, even in the spiritual world, different devotees perceive Krishna in different ways. You've got the verse?
Read that,
Advaita Machutam?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wish Govinda, the primeval Lord...
Slowly and clearly.
Yes. I wish that Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha, yet he is a person possessing the beauty of a blooming youth.
Of a blooming youth. Interesting verse too.
And there's another one
But that particular verse from the Brahma Samhita is very interesting. In the sense it's akin to this verse today in many ways. Except for it concludes there with the personal beauty of a blooming youth, which is sort of quite different to the previous, statement there of his infallibility and his this and that. We don't sort of consider a blooming youth as being an infallible description of God. Most people don't have that understanding. Yeah, and another one?
Yeah, Muktanam api siddhanam narayana Sudulabha Shantatma Kodishvapinahamune. Out of millions of great sages who are liberated souls, it is very difficult to find a sober devotee of Lord Narayan.
That's Lord Narayan, not to speak of Lord Krishna.
Really.
And many people worship Krishna in his expanded form of Lord Narayan. Lakshmi Narayan. Very nice, but it still is not really a full understanding of Krishna. Very, very rare for a pure devotee of the Lord. And why is it very rare? Why?
Requires pure unalloyed devotion of the soul. And most
Sorry?
It requires the pure devotion of the soul, and most people's souls aren't that pure.
Well, the soul maybe, but the soul is completely covered over. Huh? We're attached to the coverings. So Krishna is reciprocating with us accordingly. Huh? He reveals himself according to our surrender. So for the karmi, he reveals himself as death. Huh? Prabhu says. They see the supreme is death. They don't necessarily call it supreme, but he appears to them as death. Reciprocates accordingly. Or as the impersonal Brahmajyoti or something like that. People have these other desires. They see their idea of God is one very, materially speaking, or the supplier or the liberator or, whatever it is. It's all that we're still seeing ourselves as the enjoyer. We're still seeing ourselves in the center. And then more specifically, let's say you take a verse in the 7th canto, also 7th canto, isn't it? Prahlad Maharaj, when he's preaching to his father, what does he say?
Oh, that verse, I don't have the translation, but he says at one moment that there is certain people, even though you preach them, even though they are really...
There's 2 verses there.
They are focused, they won't change their advice, even though there is all the qualifications.
And he explains why.
Because they are...
Adanta gobir vishitam tamishram. That their attachment, intense attachment to identifying with the body, adanta gobir, sense gratification, and family life. Very addicted to family life. Even with the good advice of others, hearing from others, or hearing collectively, whatever it may be. What's the first word? I know the verse very well, it's just that this one, my memory is not with me. Pardon? Matina Krishna Paratokspatova Mito Vipadyeti Vihavitana Grihavrata. Those who've made this vow. And you see that with many people, huh? is to say, I know Krishna. And they're completely attached to the family life. It's like God, my mother's God, my father's God, this is God, that's God. You know, they're really attached, life and soul, to family life. It's described as, what is this family life described as? Yeah, a deep, dark well. Are you married, Rishabh?
No, I'm not.
Okay, this is for you. You know, you're coming from an Indian family. You know how intense family attachment is, right? It's one of the challenges of Indian being born in. Many blessings are there, but there's a few challenges too. In the West, it's not so deep, is it? It's not so deep. It's there, but it's not so deep. You know, get out my well. Go get your own well. Go to hell, but get out of my well. You know, it's the path to hell as well, by the way. Tamishram, Prahlāda Maharaj said, and leads down to hell. This attachment. You know. No attraction to hearing about it. You may have some attraction, but you can't hold it. The attraction is only kind of like a passing phase or something kind of in your social scene or something, one of many things. You can't go there, you can't go into the depth of Krishna consciousness as long as we're still in our well, you know. And one's understanding of the absolute truth is extremely limited according to the nature of one's own well. Kind of, even in spirituality, sometimes we have a frog in the well mentality, trying to measure it. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, anything you can try to measure, that means Maya. You can't measure the Supreme. Even the material energy is immeasurable in one sense, but we try to measure it, and to some extent there's some degree of measurement there. And what's the next verse? Can you look that up? Matirna Krishna Parataks-Vatova, 7th Canto Bhagavatam. Prahlāda Maharaj preaching to his beloved father, who was eager to hear Krishna consciousness, very enthusiastic to hear about these things. You can see there's a typical example of a Grihavrata Adanta Gobir, and how he's really not only can't understand it, he becomes inflamed when you preach it. Absolutely inflamed. Some people are like that. They become, they're envious. They're absolutely angry when you preach Krishna consciousness. Have you ever come across people like that?
My father.
Your father? Okay. Not your father too, huh? And he's a Hindu?
Yes.
It's amazing, isn't it? You preach the Hindu scriptures to him, and he gets angry. Incredible. How conditioned we are. They only want to take that which agrees with their conditioning and nothing else. Your father has a pious streak too. He's not all bad.
It's very atheistic.
Huh?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but he was very respectful to me when I met him. I quite liked him actually. I thought he was a man with, character at least, Huh? Yeah. Some respect was there. Yes, have you got them? We heard that already. Read the English.
No, you trying to learn something? Okay.
Read the English.
This is the second one, right?
Well, no, read the English. No, we never fully said the first one. Say it completely.
Back to the first one, right? Read the English. Prahlāda Maharaj replied, because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress toward hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclinations toward Krishna are never aroused either by the instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by a combination of both.
Isn't that amazing? Even by their own efforts. We can understand maybe not being able to hear from others, but so they're actually making an effort. I suppose we could say scientists and philosophers and false, whatever, bogus religionists and what have you, spiritualists and so on. They're making a kind of an effort, but they're not getting there. Why? Because Krishna's not revealing himself. It's not possible, is it? Is there a verse which describes that? If Krishna doesn't reveal himself?
Yeah.
We're getting the brain working this morning, that's nothing else. Mine's not woken. I haven't woken up yet.
Yeah, that's the one,
And the whole verse.
yeah.
And the English.
The English is I'm not revealing by study, those who are accumulating knowledge, those who are utilizing the power of their mind, or those who even hear about me. I'm the one who decides to reveal myself.
What a great verse. Which number is that?
It's from the Upanishad.
Upanishad 1, 2, 23.
Fantastic verse, huh?
You know that
Spot on.
the Vaisnava Goswami is going to do a Katha Upanishad.
Is doing Katha Upanishad commentary or what?
The verse is also in Bhagavad Gita in the Prabhu.
Yeah, there are several verses. Well, it's in the Bhagavad Gita. Yes. I mean, you can go to the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita too, huh?
It's the one disciple Kadama comes from, in Sanskrit, Vasudev, and he's chanting.
Here. Many verses, huh? The form you are now seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can see me as I am. My dear Arjuna, only by undivided, not just devotional service. That's the key word, isn't it? Undivided.
Which verse are you reading?
Ananya. Huh?
Which verse is
It's 11 chapters, text 54, 1154,
Okay.
universal form.
Okay.
Only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. That's the last verse of the 11th chapter, Prabhu. Yeah, Prabhu says it's the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, this verse. My dear Arjuna, he who engages in pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activity and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me. Interesting, Prabhupada says that. Therefore, this verse is considered to be the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. This is the formula. This verse is the formula. English? My dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me. It doesn't directly say that, because Krishna delivers him. There's a nice verse in the 12th chapter, isn't there? 2 verses there, and we'll go back to Krishna Kripa in a second.
Oh, yes.
6 and 7.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, 6 and 7.
Shamam Sambuddhanta.
Yeah,
That's 7.
7.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in the wrong chapter. I was wondering why I couldn't see it. I'm in the wrong chapter. Yeah. There's 2 verses. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. Because we're in the bodily condition of life. But for those, the previous verse, but for those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed and immovable, the impersonal conception of the Absolute. By controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engaged in welfare of all at last achieve me. But as you said in the other verse in the Bhagavad Gita, after Manushanam Sahasreshu, after very, very difficult, or Bahunam Jamanaya and Te Ganavam Papajate, after many, many long endeavor, we may come to that personal understanding. But then Krishna says the famous verse, text 6 and 7. What is that? Ye tu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matparaha ananya-naiva yogena mam jayanta upasate. And the famous verse then, Tesha maham sumudarta mityu samsara sagarat. Oh yes, well, you're all doing very good with your verse. They're all good, huh?
Yeah.
Everyone here is great. You're studying Prabhupada's books. It's good, huh?
For me, refreshing the mind.
For me too. It's refreshing. I mean, for 1976, I knew probably 10 times more verses than I know now. We used to pick it every day. We have verse classes and we were using them all the time. But now it's like just the ones that stick are a few, you know. They don't do it anymore. Not to say that's the goal of life exactly, but it certainly helps. But those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Prita, what happens then?
They attain me without difficulty and...
For them, I am the swift deliverer. I am the deliverer from the ocean of birth and death, because you could go on further. But then, of course, Krishna goes on to how we can do that, how we can achieve that, how we can fix our mind on him. Different stages are there. We could go to the 18th chapter also, I think. The memory, I hope, isn't that bad. I hope. Where's those verses in the 18th chapter? Related to the same thing.
How about 58?
Here's a famous verse. 1855, one of the most famous verses in the Gita. What is that? Bhakti-mam Vishate tadanantaram. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one's in full consciousness of me, by such devotion, he can enter into, not just get delivered from birth and death, that's one thing. Yeah, enter into the kingdom of God. Full devotional service. Mancha yoga vicharana, bhakti yogena sevate sudhana. Rise above the three modes of material nature and attain to the spiritual platform.
And then 58, chitta sarvadurgam. Kusashisi yachachamam karam nashoshisi vinashisi.
Yeah, there's some verses here. We also, I think he talks about not by studying the scriptures, this, that, and the other. We saw that in the 11th chapter, but I thought in the 18th chapter there were similar verses. What number is that?
That's the 67 or 9.
In the 18th chapter?
Yes, it's at the end. Those who are preaching about my glories, they attain the highest type of bhakti.
This confidential knowledge may never be explained to those who are not austere, or devoted, or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me. 67. Then, of course, about the devotees. But there's so many verses, you know.
At the end, he says, without doubt, you will attain.
Yeah, for those who are preaching Krishna consciousness, at the end he will come back to me, for sure. There's so many verses. But the other side of it, that those who are, you cannot approach him by any other means, other than pure, ultimately, because it's only by pure devotional service that Krishna reveals himself. What's the second verse there spoken by Prahlad Maharaj? Read it. Timmi Vishnam Dirasha ei-bāro. Translation?
Well, I sort of I'll have to look it up again. That was the 7:31. Persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life and who therefore accept it as their leader or guru, a similar blind man attached to external sense objects cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Lord Vishnu. As blind men, guided by another blind man, miss the right path and fall into a ditch material attached men, led by another materially attached man, are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries.
A long translation.
Yeah.
Pretty graphic. Anyway, there are numerous verses. The whole Bhagavatam is aimed, of course, at the highest perfection, but there are so many, you could say, stages, steps, which we have to go on to reach that and realize, let's see, what is required. Bhagavad Gita is full of verses, how we can understand the absolute truth, how we can understand Krishna. It's nice to remember these things. We have to finish there, I think. Yeah, there are some verses which are eluding me right now, but I know there are many other verses in the Gita which are very relevant to this. Any more verses? Any more comments? How we can clear away the coverings on our consciousness?
Do you think 1858 is a good verse?
1858? Let's have a look at that from a different perspective. If one becomes conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life. Yes, it is, by my grace. Becoming conscious of Krishna is one thing, but still we can't get released without the mercy of Krishna. Everything depends on that. His grace. In many of these verses, Krishna is explaining, working always under my direction, under my grace, so on and so forth. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, very interesting, I always like this, at least Prabhupada has written there, not hearing me, you will be lost.
Yeah,
Yeah, Nashoshasi. You're not hearing. And we can apply that to just about everything, can't we, in our devotional endeavours? When we're not chanting japa. We're chanting japa, but we're not hearing. We're hearing something else, Then you'll be lost. Hearing. The importance of hearing. So important. Rapt attention. Hear this. With rapt attention. If you do not act according to my direction and do not fight, you'll be falsely directed. Under illusion, you are now declining to... there's so many verses here in this section. In all activities, just depend on me and work always under my protection. Such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. My pure devotees under my protection reaches the eternal and imperishable abode by my grace. Though engaged in all kinds of activities, my pure devotee under my protection reaches the eternal and imperishable abode by my grace. Interesting. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hari-bo. Thank you for, filling up a class, which I didn't know what to... I realized, although I'm awake, I'm not awake. Good
I was like that when
refresh.
I was waking up the deities.
I saw that. He say that sometimes. You can see that if I was waking up the deities, it looks like they're not fully awake. They're wondering what to do next. I saw you yesterday. It looked like you were still asleep. You weren't quite sure which one. I was just watching you for a while there. It's sometimes like that, you're so tired, your intelligence can't, focus on all the things that have to be done, what to do next. It's very important sadhana in the morning, it doesn't just wake us up, but it helps us our intelligence to be kind of like tuned into the right direction. We're not spontaneous, we're not sleeping, some may be, but I'm certainly not, all night long you're just body is resting, but you're absorbed in a loving, devotional service in your heart of hearts. Like a pure devotee doesn't sleep; they just rest their body a little bit sometimes. They're not sleeping. We're in the darkness of ignorance. It takes a while to wake up. It takes a lot sometimes to wake us up. We we fall back into our conditionings, huh? We react to situations according to our previous conditionings and become angry because we're not getting our way or there's something or another. We don't realize how Krishna is working in so many ways. And we often blame the object which is immediately in front of us or something, whatever it may be. See how Krishna is trying to release us or trying to wake us up. Jeev jago, go to Chandabole. Huh? We're sleeping in the lap of the witch called Maya. Sleep. So you can see it's not even by study of the Shastra, it's not by austerity, it's not by welfare work, charity, etc., that one can understand me as I am standing before you. It's only by pure unalloyed devotional service that I can be understood. Why? Because Krishna reciprocates with pure unalloyed devotion. It's not by an analytical study of even the tattvas. That may be there. All these things are limbs, which may be required and may be very, very beneficial in our progress. If they don't, if they're done in a proper way, guided properly, then, but ultimately it's the mercy of Krishna. Even we see histories, stories and so on, persons who are pretty much illiterate. They may not even be in human bodies sometimes, right? But they get the full mercy of Krishna. Surrender. Complete surrender. Completely accept, like the cobbler and the brahmana, for instance. Brahmana was very learned. Mm-hmm. He probably knew every verse from Bhagavad Gita. I don't know about the Bhagavatam, he may not know. But so many other scriptures, very learned. But that wasn't enough, because pride was still there. But the cobbler didn't know many verses at all, if any. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, maybe a few others. That was enough. And there's so many examples of that. Because his heart was surrendered. Heart was pure. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam.